Why would Ohio legalize marijuana and then immediately criminalize intoxicating hemp? I'm going to tell you, but I need you to do me a solid and press that button because I want 10,000 followers by the end of the year, and it's December 12th. The federal government is about to change marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3 drug. This is like a pseudo decriminalization. Marijuana is highly regulated and taxed. It costs $1 million to get into the marijuana game, and if you can't pay, you can't play. Whereas intoxicating hemp has a much lower threshold and barrier to entry. Every industry has a big something. So just like there's big pharma, there's also big marijuana. And big marijuana doesn't want these little bodegas honing in on their cut. And so by decriminalizing marijuana and criminalizing intoxicating hemp, what you've done is created a situation where minority business owners are pushed out of business. But more importantly than that, you created a situation that's ripe for selective enforcement, which is what we'll talk about in the next video. Ohio just made a major change to the marijuana. They have banned intoxicating hemp and weed that doesn't come from Ohio. Now here in Ohio, because we just got decriminalization, our dispensary prices are ridiculously high. But our next door neighbors in Michigan have, quote, that good for the low. I think that's the official term for it. On the surface, it might look like this change is about tax revenue. It isn't. What it does is manufacture probable cause and set up selective enforcement. If I'm from Ohio, where weed is legal, and I go to Michigan, where weed is legal, and buy it and bring it back, I am transporting drugs across state borders. I've committed a federal crime. Because remember, marijuana is not being fully decriminalized. It's being reclassified, but it's still a drug. Now, peep this. If I live in Ohio and I'm simply existing outside smoking weed as it is my legal right to do, a police officer can come up to me, search me, arrest me, hold me on suspicion of my weed being from Michigan. This is a 13th Amendment shaped loophole, and I'm going to explain what that means in the next video, so come on back. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There are no race-neutral laws. This is part 3, so if you didn't watch part 1 and 2, go back, you lazy stoner, and watch it. The 13th Amendment ended slavery, kind of, sort of, but it left a big loophole. You see that up there at the top? It allowed slavery to continue as a punishment for a crime. See, the South didn't want to end slavery because it was making them so much money, and the 13th Amendment gave them a way out. They were able to criminalize Black existence, put us in jail, and then re-enslave us for being people who committed crimes. And the crimes were like trespassing, menacing, looking disrespectfully at a white woman, and of course, being unemployed. I want to tell you what this has to do with getting high, but I didn't expect this video to be long, so there's going to be a part 4. Come on back. The loophole in the 13th Amendment allowed slavery to be de jure over and de facto still going on. That is what these intoxicating hemp laws are going to do to Black people. Because just like the 13th Amendment loophole, they require selective enforcement. I'm Asia Harriet Hales. I talk about the issues that matter over here. If you haven't followed me, what are you doing? So in 2023, Ohio legalized weed. But a few days ago, we just recriminalized intoxicating hemp and made it illegal to get your weed from anywhere other than Ohio. And this is going to make it really easy to put people in jail for something that is legal. There's more. I really feel like y'all can handle a 2-minute video, but apparently not. So come back for the next part. Once we can easily and legally detain Black people for marijuana possession, we've got a brand new slave force ready. Ohio legalized marijuana in 2020. But just like we did with the 13th Amendment, our state created a loophole that is going to allow us to incarcerate people for something that is legal. I'm Asia Harriet Hales. I talk about the issues that matter over here, and I'm trying to reach 10,000 followers by the end of the year, so do me a solid and press that button. Thank you. Back to the news. So now instead of charging somebody with simple possession, you can charge them with interstate drug trafficking. Now, instead of I had some gummies, I bought an illegal hemp-derived product from a non-authorized distributor. Meanwhile, everybody who is not Black or brown will be able to basically smoke weed with impunity, which will make it even harder for them to believe that people are getting arrested for doing the same thing they're doing. Mark my words, marijuana possession charges are about to become de jure illegal and de facto able to put a ton of black people in jail. And that concludes the series. What did you guys think? What are your opinions about decriminalizing and reclassifying marijuana? Let me know in the comments. You can't smoke Michigan weed in Ohio anymore. And with that one rule, Ohio's intoxicating hemp ban has shifted the burden of proof from the state to the customer. Let me start by clarifying that transporting drugs across state lines has always been a federal crime. That's the how. The how has always been a crime. The what has never been a crime. The what is what happens once the drugs get here. If I am in Ohio and the weed is in Ohio, previously that was enough for me to smoke it in Ohio. But now because of this law, I have to prove point of origin. So if I'm in Ohio, the weed is in Ohio, but it was grown in Michigan, now I'm breaking the law. Shifting the burden of proof in this way is a super dangerous precedent, and it deserves its own video, so that's what I'm going to get into next. Come on back. In America, you're innocent until proven guilty, unless you're a smoker in Ohio. Ohio's new intoxicating hemp law is shifting the burden of proof in a very dangerous way. We have very quickly gone from weed is legal and I, as the state, have to prove that you're doing it illegally to the legality of weed is an exception and you, as the consumer, have to prove that you're not doing it illegal. And this is a really clear modern example of how you can criminalize an entire population fairly quickly without anybody being upset about it. After the Civil War, the South passed these black codes that said that black people could not exist without employment. They had to carry papers, labor contracts, and references. That's where references came from. If they didn't have these things, they could be arrested for being unemployed, which made you automatically a vagrant if you were black. Kind of like in the same way having $20 on you as a trans woman makes you a prostitute in New York? Check. Kind of like looking Latino means you have to carry a passport around to prove that you belong here. This is the same legal mechanism having different impacts across time. And the impact of this one will be putting black people back in jail so we can get our slave workforce back, because America never has existed or thrived without cheap disposable labor. And we're deporting the cheap disposable labor we've been using. So who do you think is next? The worst part is you don't even have to be a smoker to get caught up, because the burden of proof is on you. Any cause is probable cause now. I thought I smelled weed becomes like I thought I saw a gun. Having a vape pen is a good enough reason for the police to stop you, because they have to verify that that vape pen has cigarettes in it and not illegal Michigan-obtained marijuana. I try to stay away from long videos, but this is the end of this series, so I just wanted to finish it off clean. Thanks for riding with me. Ohio is calling this a ban on intoxicating hemp. It's actually a stop and frisk law in disguise. I know I said I was done with this series, but I'm going to do one more because y'all are really not understanding this. Transporting marijuana from Michigan to Ohio has always been illegal. Transporting drugs across state lines is illegal. That is the how. But this law is not about the how, it's about the what. Now, instead of the state having to prove that you got your weed from Michigan, you have to prove that you didn't. Which means anyone smoking or smelling like smoke or in a vehicle smelling like smoke or with a vape pen, even if it's for cigarettes or anything an officer could construe as possibly smoking, that's now probable cause for them to detain you and make you prove that you got it from Ohio. So while classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction is giving Homeland Security broad and sweeping ability to police people inside and outside of the United States. We need to talk about this executive order that will classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. A lot of political commentators are saying that this is just political and that it won't have an impact, and they're all wrong. I'm Asia Harriet Hells, the one who told you that SB1 was going to fuck up colleges when they initially said it was only for elementary school. The one who told you not to get pregnant in Ohio because of the laws that are changing. And the girl who helped you understand, can we get high or not? Put some respect on my name. I'm going to break this down clearly for you, so it will be at least a 4-part series, so lock it. Because I need you to understand that you hear war on drugs, I hear war on us. For those of you who don't know, the president signed an executive order today that reclassified fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. And this is really bad for all of us. By doing this, he is changing the war on drugs to an actual war. And presidents have broad and sweeping power during wartime. And in all actuality, this order solves a lot of problems for Trump. See, internationally, presidents are starting to be held accountable for their war crimes through an organization called the International Criminal Court. And if there's anything that America is really number one at, it's war crimes. So now the war crime that our Secretary of War committed last month when he bombed a Venezuelan cargo ship and then bombed the survivors to make sure everyone was dead now becomes necessary counterterrorism action. And it's much easier to sell to the public than, hey, we decided to take out a fishing boat because we felt like it. And that's not the only problem this executive order fixes, and I really want to get into it, but I did promise you I would start making shorter videos. And I'm trying to keep my word, because the real difference between you and me is this executive order framing fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction is doing some really heavy lifting. In the last part, I talked about how this reframes Hex's actions from war crime to necessary patriotic action in the mind of America. Legally, it's still a war crime, but we have seen again and again that this administration thinks it's better to win the war on public opinion. And really, it is, because policy follows popularity. By doing this, we're opening the door for the president to take more retributive action and wrap that up in the law. So like the people that are trying to impeach Secretary Hexeth right now, the president will likely call enemies within, or terrorists, or sympathizers with terrorists. And as we saw with the Diddy documentary, narrative reframe can be very effective. We haven't even talked about the part that I'm really concerned about, which is Homeland Security. So we'll get into that in the next video. Come on. You thought the ICE raids were bad? Just wait until DHS enters the chat. It's about to get a lot worse before it gets any better. I'm Asia Harriet Hales, and this is part 4 of Fighting Fentanyl with Fire. If you haven't watched the other 3 parts, go do that, because I'm not going to re-explain. You done? Good. After 9/11 in 2001, Congress authorized something called the AUMF. It's the authorized use of military force. And because America loves a loophole, we just left that shit wide fucking open. Technically, it's only supposed to be against Al-Qaeda, but we have applied it broadly to other situations. Both Democratic and Republican presidents have used this AUMF to legitimize things like drone strikes and use of SEAL Team 6. DHS has broad jurisdiction when it comes to counterterrorist action. We're talking DHS run raids, proliferation of violence, no privacy whatsoever, and most importantly, selective enforcement, baby, because you know if they come out in the streets, you know who they're coming for and who they're not. This is just one more way for this administration to make slavery great again. Selective enforcement and unlawful detention is the name of the... This is not a war on fentanyl, it's a war on us. I'm Asia Harriet Hales. This is part 5 of this series. Go back and watch the old ones. I'm not explaining. We think that what's happening to Latinos right now will not happen to us, but guess what? It's already happening to us. Between 2015 and 2020, ICE deported 70 United States citizens. That was before this term. In the first 9 months of 2025, ICE detained 170 U.S. citizens. They're really not keeping account of how many U.S. citizens they're wrongfully detaining, but citizen journalism has been pretty good, so that's where we got this. And that's ICE, an organization that generally has less sweeping authority than DHS. And we've already seen that this administration is willing to act unlawfully to push their agendas forward. And the problem with this administration is that they've already proven that if you do something illegal fast enough, it effectively doesn't matter because it's going to take a long time to undo. Which is why Kilmar Abrego Garcia just got released from ICE custody last week. This is bad, real bad. Michael Jackson. So in addition to expanding the slave labor class, this is also going to allow us to continue to do targeted strikes on South American countries so we can steal their oil because we ain't got no money. I mean, and it's not that we don't have any oil. It's that Venezuela has 3 times the amount of oil that we have. and they don't have the equipment, infrastructure, or technology to extract. Venezuela has the largest crude oil reserve in the world. America has one of the most efficient, although arguably ecologically harmful, oil extraction processes in the world. If America had access to Venezuelan oil reserves, we could literally quadruple their output within a year. But that would require an American-friendly government, and President Maduro is accurately peeping what this administration does, which means we need a regime change. America's real good at that too. So when you start to put the pieces together, this single executive order exonerates Pete Hegseth in the eyes of the public, gives us a reason to continue stealing Venezuelan oil, and allows us to incarcerate pretty much anyone for pretty much anything. Oh, and I forgot, opening the door for the president to continue using anti-terrorism rhetoric for his personal retribution against people who don't say shit he likes.